There's a question about integrating steps into a landscape, something like this where you have these pavers or steps or whatever they are. They're kind of spaced out. They have been trimmed out to the landscape, but I have sections sort of here floating above the paver and in between the pavers where they're just not cleaning up very well. There's a few things that we can do here. The first thing, if I select the mesh, and then I usually just eyedrop, but you can also select the mesh from the toolbox over here and make sure that your geometry method is set to polygon. Now if I click and click again, or double click and say fit to user ridges, now I have a node that is essentially like in one point contour, and I can then move that and sculpt it to position at the top of that mesh. Here you can see I've conveniently placed a contour to run through at least one corner of that as a starting point. That might not be the case, so you might need, as would be the case here where there are no contours, you can do the same thing. Select the mesh, make sure that the mesh tool is selected and the geometry method is set to polygon. And I never click right on a point because that point's going to activate the pet palette. So I'm just going to click here in the middle, and instead of clicking again, I'm going to click on that node, and then double click on that node to end it. And now I can move right here with the pet palette, I can move that node to that point. And if I just use my sort of Z axis on the pet palette, I can start to pull and sculpt this down as well. So all of these nodes then can lay flat with that tread. You may find that it starts to get a little steppy in here. If that's the case, you can also just sort of bisect with another contour here. That can help to kind of smooth that out on either side. But you might get weird drops and things like that, so it might be a matter of adjusting contours or things like that, but at least feathering out and planing with the steps, just start off to the edge. Again, mesh is selected, mesh tool is selected, geometry method in the info box is polygon, and then click on these points. Adjust the starting point here to be in line with that. And then each of these points can then be brought up and down individually. The advantage to having these all as a single contour now, if these treads ever change, let's say that we lose 6 inches out of these, or sorry, not 6 inches, let's say 1 inch. Just do this, elevate them all up 1 inch. All I have to do is grab this contour, isolate it out, and then drag it up to that point, and all of those nodes are going to come up together. So by having those as a contour instead of as an individual node, once I have this set up, it's a lot easier to manipulate and clean that up. So last time, I'm just going to snap to these points, say OK, grab that node, pull it right there, and then feather these up flush with the top of the tread that they're lining up with. So that would be the way that I would clean that up. And again, like I said, it might take a little bit of extra contour work, maybe running an additional contour through here to eliminate that sort of feathered, or sorry, that weird stepped appearance. But that's the best way that I know of to get a situation like this modeled out precisely the way that you need.